Out of all of our top damage dealers in Warframe, Warframe in particular has a strong track record of being at the top of the food chain even throughout multiple reworks, buffs and nerfs. No matter what they throw at Saryn, she survives. Why is this? Well, it comes down to mainly her theme. Poison, infection, disease, no matter what way you choose to best describe her role and theme amongst the roster, she always ties in perfectly with multiple of Warframe's best damage types. While other frames such as Vault may be tied to the theme and damage type of just electricity, Saryn revolves around viral, toxin and corrosive, all three being exceptional and have been for years. Not only do these work together for one of the best elemental combos in the game, but this also makes her formidable versus every faction. Viral being good against pretty much everything, and especially when combined with corrosive. Corrosive of course being the best tool for armor stripping, and Toxin bypasses Corpus shields. And all of this now leads directly into our Condition Overload mods, which are of course meta and used on majority of our builds now. Stacking 3 elements with abilities alone, and having the options to use whatever elements and IPS on your weapons and companions, Saryn can easily cap out the max damage multipliers from the Condition Overload mods, simply due to these combinations. But knowing that this current meta has taken Saryn to a whole new level of damage, it makes the previous Saryn metas all that more impressive, as she went from a press 4 to win nuke, and then into a viral spreading monster with the old viral debuff that used to cut enemies' health in half, and to now having her insane corrosive damage scaling spores, her corrosive and toxin buffs, and her viral spreading miasma. It just seems no matter what meta the game throws at her, she will always have access to one of the best elements in the game. Of course, she may be arguably the absolute pinnacle of damage creep within the game, but she didn't always have the best survivability. Some may even argue she's a bit of a glass cannon, with the best form of her tanking being in her shield gate. Ever since the introduction of this mechanic, Saryn has ascended to more of a complete Warframe, capable of handling herself at high levels without the help of a team. It's safe to assume that shield gating will be here to stay for the long run, and the idea of any nerfs towards Saryn don't really pose any threat, because the odds are, if you want to nerf Saryn, you might have to nerf one of the 3 damage types she uses. And of course, trying to nerf the elements that she currently uses, or even remove one of them from her kit, would go against her theme, which is exactly why I think her reign at the top of DPS will forever continue regardless of the meta. And of course, let's also address that it's not just the damage type she has access to, but also the amount of damage she can do. Many Warframes rely on infinite health scaling damage values, while Saryn simply does enough damage making use of buffs and excessive stacking multipliers from Condition Overload to wipe the floor with enemies regardless of their level. Oh, you've got armor? Here is now my corrosive infused Incarnate weapon. Oh, you've got health? Well, I can just press forward and nuke the whole room with viral damage. Oh, you've got shields? Fuck your shields, bro.
There's nothing I can't kill.
Anyway, you get the idea. Now it's time for some builds. And we're going to start off by covering the melee setup, which you're currently seeing in the background, which involves the Rakta Dark Dagger, combining with the Argonac with its special mod to help with armor stripping, a Shieldgate focused melee setup on Saryn, and then pretty much everything else is optional. Brief Respiner Aura for shield gating, Prime Shot Foot so we don't get knocked down, catalyzing shields that also help with the shield gate. Although this build isn't really focused on using spores, we still want to use stretch so we can spread them through room to room. Rolling Guard for iframes, Archon Continuity for duration, Augur Secrets and Blind Rage for our strength, but you could also throw in Umbral Intensify if you have the room for it, more Augmented for even more strength, Equilibrium for our energy sustain, and Arcane Strike for more DPS on our melee. And finally, the Augment Venom Dose can allow us to hold down our spores and then give us innate radiation on our melee weapons. And it's worth noting that the toxin damage buff you get from your third ability actually doesn't combine with any of the elements on your weapon. It's just a separate instance of toxin damage, so it will not combine to make gas. You can run that as a separate element if you want. On our Argonac, we just need this mod right here to give us the armor reduction for our dagger attacks, and we can also use primary dexterity for that combo duration. I really like using the Rakta Dark Dagger with this setup because we can get shields whenever we hit an enemy that is procced with radiation, which the weapon does innate radiation, so this is going to occur quite a lot. We're going with a purely status and range focused setup using Condition Overload, Melee Elementalist, and we're running Blast, Radiation, Electricity with our Melee Influence so we can spread that status everywhere. Madarai for our focus school so we can gain bonus ability strength upon our slings, and of course more casting speed. You might have noticed that in some of the gameplay I'm also not using the Rakta Dark Dagger because you don't really need it to stay alive as long as you are mashing your second ability for its shield gate, or any of your abilities for that matter. And I was using the Techo Prime, and if you're curious on the build, here it is. And yes, Saryn is amazing with a bunch of different melee weapons. Incarnate Prime is also one of my favourites to use on her. And when you think about it, the fact that she turns pretty much every weapon in the game, whether it's melee, secondary or primary, into an absolute powerhouse, and at the same time can wipe hordes with her abilities, you could remove one element of her kit and she'd probably still be either excelling at a weapons platform or a room nuke. And speaking of room nuking, we're now going to quickly move on to a setup that I've used quite a lot. It is born of necessity, but it is very useful, and that is the leveling Saryn setup. This build focuses around maximum range and solid damage, and what I'm really using this for is either farming focus or XP, leveling weapons, leveling my teammates' weapons and warframes. It's a farming setup, and I know we don't really cover these a lot on this channel, because everyone's got their own little metas that they like to use, but taking this into either regular or elite Sanctuary Onslaught, it's always super reliable, and I have to share this setup with you guys. The general idea with this setup is that we are spreading our spores and our miasma across the map so we can farm as many kills and XP in a quick amount of time as possible. This isn't a setup I'll take on a long survival or scaling endless mission, because it really hasn't got that much survivability. It's just here to be efficient. Brief Respite the aura, but you could probably put Cunning Drift instead of Prime Sure Footed in here, Stretch, Augur Reach and Overextended for our range, Boreal's Hatred for a bit of efficiency, Equilibrium for energy sustain, and Energize. Energize isn't necessary at all, but it's there. Transient Fortitude, Umbral Intensify, and more Augmented to offset overextended strength loss, and Archon Continuity for a bit of duration. And to be fair, you can use this in regular missions, because you can just use Brief Respite to shield gate, but overall the setup isn't going to be as effective or consistent in terms of the survivability department. So we are in 2024, and is it really a surprise to anyone that Saryn is still the best in the DPS category? I know that's debatable when we're looking at frames such as Mesa, Protea, Korra, there's a bunch to name. But I do think there's certain Warframes that get released where their theme kind of drives them to be part of the meta forever. Whether that's intentional or not, based on the pick of what the theme is, who knows. I imagine it's probably quite difficult for a dev to pick a Warframe theme and then to know truly whether it's going to be meta for a long time, based on how those abilities revolve around the theme. And to be fair, I think plenty of games have characters that are sharing the poison or infection aspect of Saryn and tend to be pretty good across other game titles as well. I know it may be a stretch to talk about, but obviously we've got ties to Apex Legends on this channel, and Caustic from Apex is poison focused with his gas, and he's been one of the best legends in the game for years now. Something that a lot of these characters share is damage over time, and when you include a mechanic like Saryn has now with her rework that she got a while ago, with the fact that her spores increase in damage over time up to a cap of 100,000, it's just a recipe for success. That and the fact that she also doesn't require line of sight, and it does make sense because she is focused around viral infection, which is another point to the fact that her theme ties in with how strong she is. Her damage is sort of in the air, and enemies don't do themselves any favours by spreading it to each other. I could sit here and try to cook up a third build for the video, but the reality is Saryn is so easy to build for. You could argue there's decent variety in the way that she can be made. I don't want to half-ass the setup just for the sake of adding a third build to the video, so instead I will just leave you with the rest of the gameplay, specifically from this 1 hour survival, which was absolute light work. Also a quick heads up, I know the uploads have kind of slowed on this channel. For me, Warframe is in a little bit of a dry spot. I'm definitely struggling to come up with special video ideas that I think you guys are going to enjoy, and I want to make sure the videos I'm putting out are good quality and not just thrown out for the sake of it. Pumping out build video left, right, center isn't really something I feel like doing right now, especially considering that with the upcoming Warframe updates, I know my motivation is going to be higher and I'm going to have more content to cover. I'm very eager to see what the next Warframe update brings, and of course we still have 1999 to look forward to. I think that's where I'm saving a lot of my grind for. Not only to cover that update, but the fact that we can cover Caliban's upcoming rework and Trinity and Nyx. And we've got 2 Warframes before the end of the year. What I'm getting at is I hope you guys are patient and enjoying the videos regardless. If you've got any ideas, especially for like the top 5s we did recently, let me know in the comment section. And of course, before you leave, if you enjoyed the video and found the builds useful, be sure to leave a like on the video and follow my socials and whatnot on my Twitch. Links are in the description. And subscribe to the channel if you have not. Appreciate all the support lately. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.